So again, thank you so much for joining us. And again, I really do want to thank Allison for bringing all of us together. This is a general outline of what we'll be going over on this call with a little bit of time for each of us to participate, as well as some question and answer. So we're going to jump right in. Again, this will be recorded. This is being recorded, and the slides will be posted at this link, as well as, if the technology gods work well with me, I will try to email this to all of you as well. So please meet our panelists today. We will not be going in directly this order, but we will be starting with Mr. Brian Coleman. So I will let him jump right in.
Hi, folks. All right. So what I will be sharing is really an outgrowth of a conversation that started on Twitter last week about some of the things happening at the high school level, specifically with my team. All right. So one big thing I want folks thinking about is, well, where to begin? How do you start crafting a counseling program or counseling strategy at this stage? Absolutely happy to help on that front. Stephanie, can we move to the next slide?
There we go.
Hey, awesome. All right, so some big things to be thinking about. I know a lot of information has been coming out for counselors, specifically from the American School Counseling Association. You have the districts, your schools. There are a lot of different pieces to parse through. I think it's very important that before you are creating a plan of some kind, you know what policies are governing your decision making, and then you're in touch with the appropriate stakeholders. I think it's very important to have a clear sense of expectations. What are your expectations for self? What are the expectations placed on you by your school, your district, etc.? And you know that you are working forward with that in mind. I think everyone should identify their key stakeholders. Who are your primary partners at this stage? Right now, for example, I'm partnering a great deal with my counseling team. I'm the department chair for a team of 6 counselors. So we are on Zoom calls once every other day, talking through what we're up to. I'm in touch with my administration. I'm in touch with the department chairs for the other departments at my school. I'm in touch with our school case manager, our school social work support, etc. Who are your key stakeholders that you need right now to leverage? And then who's your target audience? For me, that's my students, that's my parents and guardians, but that's also my teachers and my admin, and making sure that we're all on the same page in terms of how we're moving forward together as a unified community. Specifically when it comes to technology, I mean, we are all aware, even right now, right here, right now, some of the obstacles that may occur with technology. What do you have access to? But more importantly, what does your district approve? I know that, for example, I'm in a situation in a district right now. We use the Google products. We have Google Classroom, etc. But right now, my district does not allow for direct video conferencing with students and families. So that's an obstacle that we're looking at. Well, how can we overcome this, and what are our workarounds? You need to know what tech your district, your community supports, and how you leverage that in a meaningful way. Communication is so incredibly important. I've worked with my team to put out some communication to our parents, our guardians, around what are our goals in this period of closure, what are we working with students on, how can we support them, what resources exist in the community, etc. Just knowing what those are, and being aware of what communication obstacles might exist in your population. For example, I know that a quarter of my population, English is not their first language at home. So how are we troubleshooting, potentially getting out information to families in different languages like Spanish and Polish, etc.? That's an obstacle that we're currently working to overcome. Community needs, straight up. What are the needs in your community? Are there any special needs that you're aware of, such as food? How are folks getting food? Is there any needs around technology? Are you a one-to-one school, or do you need to get out things hard copy to your students in some way? How are you going to do that? Just being aware of what your communication tools are and what your community may need. I think a lot of counselors have their data already. Whatever data you've collected, let that inform your practice and your strategy at this stage. And then that really dovetails into your counseling program goals. I would imagine before the period of closure, you already had some sort of program that you were working through. Well, what are your program goals? What was your program at this stage in the year? And how can you take that program and translate it into the period of closure. For me and my team, it's been a lot of taking the transactional elements of our program, the student-driven, student-directed elements of our program, and then putting a lot of priority there. And then some of, for example, the responsive services. We can't exactly do that in the same way that we would, obviously, in a school community. So how are we sort of highlighting the things we can do remotely and downplaying the things that are more difficult at this time? Stephanie, next slide for me, please. All right, so I'm going to talk about specifically within the different domains what my team is actually doing. We are actually working on our transcript review, looking at our students' credits. I mean, right now we're in a situation, as I think all of us are, where the work can't be graded unless it's going to help or support a student's grade in that course or in that content area. So really working with our students, making sure we have a clear sense of where students' grades were before we went out, and then triaging with our teachers and our support staff to check in on those students and families to say, well, what is the strategy during this period? I mean, we're now out until maybe the third week in April, but if that extends in some way, how can we support students in maintaining or improving their academic performance remotely? Course scheduling has been a big focus for my team as of right now. We are big. First, it's important to know that since we are a Google district, I have a Google Classroom. All of the counselors at my school have Google Classrooms for all of our students at all grade levels. So that is our primary way of contacting, communicating with students right now. With anything that I'm putting out, I put out what now 2 to 3 videos at each grade level over the last week and a half, just letting them know, well, here's what we were already working on. Course scheduling. Well, here's how we're going to do course scheduling. Here's how I can support you remotely based on what I understand from the district right now. So using Google Classroom has been a primary method of communication for me. With course scheduling, we worked out a system where we now have a Google survey that students will fill out, and that's how they let me know or their counselor know exactly what their courses are, and that allows us to, again, work in a transactional way to make sure we understand what their needs are for next year. And then that teacher-family collaboration. We're really looking at on the academic front, how can we make sure for our students that were already struggling, is there some way in which we can help improve their academic performance during this period of closure? I mentioned some other things there that you may be working on, but I know the highlighted pieces are what I'm doing currently in my school. Next slide. On the personal social front, I think this is a big question that's coming up for a lot of people. Well, how do we support crisis right now? What are we doing, right? For me and my team, we're really working very closely with our school administration since we can't talk verbally directly to our students or families right now. So we'd likely get something we become aware of crisis through email. We've worked out a plan with our administration since they have access to the school building right now in a way that we do not. Just making sure that if we get wind of something, we're looping at administration. If it's an emergency situation, we're contacting 911. We're making sure the appropriate parties are looped in and getting in touch with the family as quickly as possible, likely leveraging administration to make that happen. Right now on the personal social front, it's a lot of consultation, engaging with teachers. I can video conference with teachers and staff, talking to them about what's going on, making sure we're on the same page in terms of our supports, them letting me know if something pops up in Google Classroom or in their email from students. And then the self-care piece. We have a few different self-care worksheets or checklists that we have put out to students and helping them think about their physical self-care, their psychological self-care, their emotional self-care, their spiritual self-care, etc., and ways in which they can support themselves during this period of closure. The responsive services piece is probably, honestly, right now, the most difficult piece for us right now because we don't necessarily have a format by which we can engage directly with students in a conversation or in video conference. So we're still trying to figure out the best way to support that as our district wraps their head around how we can make that happen. Next slide. And then on the college and career front, I think this is a wonderful time for a lot of student-directed independent research. That could be on careers, that could be doing interest surveys, that could be researching colleges or looking at the net price calculator and doing financial aid research. If they're already looking at college already, and they're getting their decision letters and financial aid award letters, looking at that information, analyzing that information, checking in with their counselor to see, well, does this make sense? Should I appeal, etc. So there's a lot of independent research that can be done. With self-assessments and letters of recommendation, that's something that we're working on. We have a formal survey that students fill out for their counselor. It's about 30 or so questions that helps the counselor write their letter of recommendation. We've given our students the next 2 or so months to finish that. And we all put out videos to our students explaining how they can use that information and how we as counselors use that information to write their letters of recommendation. And all of these other pieces are things that students can be doing for themselves, be it resume building or researching opportunities for the summer or working on informational interviews or enrichment interviews or mock interviews. Again, we're really putting a lot of energy on student-directed, independent work since we are not obviously with them in person. Next slide. All right, some of the big obstacles that me and my team are running into right now is one of communication. I mean, we all aware that not everyone has access to their email or to the technology necessary to interface in the way that we are right now. Also, the issue I mentioned already about not all of our families having English as their primary language or the language spoken at home, and how can we support those families remotely. Technology, I mean, we're not a one-to-one school, we're not a one-to-one district. So how can we specifically work with students, especially if they don't have technology, and how are we scaffolding our expectations for them in a way that accounts for the fact that some of them can't get things done right now or can't get things done quickly. So how are we supporting them in that way? The crisis responsive services I talked about, it's just how are we really moving forward if there is some sort of crisis? Like, do we as a school team have an awareness of the hotlines and the tools and supports, and are we all on the same page in terms of what to do, especially since we're a district that doesn't currently have a video conferencing option for our students? And then the equity and access piece, just knowing that technology is a wonderful resource, but it also can be incredibly divisive, especially in communities where students don't have access to that technology at home. Those resources don't necessarily exist. Students from afar, and to continue, I think that's so important for schools and communities to continue to reflect on how are we doing that work to meet our students where they are as best as we can. Next slide. Self-care, I mean, that's a point for all of you on this call. I mean, I know that in the period of closure, I've been on webinars and I've been in conferencing with my team, and I have been working on documents to put out to my students, and I've been going as hard as I can, because that interest in supporting students and trying to reach them from afar it's so palpable for me at this point. You got to take care of yourself, and we need to be modeling that for our kids in any way that we can. What are we doing for our own self-care? I mean, in my videos with my students, I talk about, you know what, my days have structure, and this is how I'm working through my day, and this is how I'm approaching this period of closure with some sort of intentional, self-disclosure. And you have to figure out what makes sense for you, but just putting some intention into how you're taking care of yourself, I think very, very much will support you in supporting your community at large. Next slide. All right, so just wrapping it up, specifically, what could you be working on? I think it's so important just to review your legal and ethical guidelines. A lot of information has been put out, especially from ASCA. ASCA has a wonderful FAQ, in the American School Counseling Association, rather, has a wonderful FAQ on how to do distance counseling, virtual counseling right now, and things that you need to be considering. So I'd absolutely look at that, as well as taking into account what your expectations are at the school district level. Looking at your core program objectives, what does your counseling program look like in this space? What are you looking to accomplish at this stage of the year already? How can you translate that using the tech resources that are available to you and are approved by your district and your school community? Make sure do not be in isolation. we're all distanced in some way, but being isolated is not to your benefit at this stage of counselor. Who are your supports? Who can you leverage near and far to help you support your school community? Communicating with your target audience, again, your students, your parents and guardians, your staff, about your expectations, what you're working on, and what you need from them is so incredibly important. Then implementing your program, all right? Put some things out there, and then progress monitor what's working, what's not, and continue to revise and give yourself the permission to make mistakes and to not have it all figured out, and just taking it one step at a time is so incredibly important. Next slide. All right, here are a lot of the resources that I've been using and that my team has been using. I linked to that ASCA FAQ that I found so incredibly helpful. The internet resources that are very much available in a lot of our communities, free resources there, and then a lot of the college and career resources that we've been using. And again, a lot of the things that I've been talking about, I talked about in more detail in my webinar with SREB last week, so feel free to take a look at that. And otherwise, you can click on these links here. Next slide. Just do the next right thing. I'm cheesy, I'm about that unicorn life, and I am, yes, a big Disney fan, especially in the wake of closure. I've been rocking Disney Plus on a daily basis. Frozen 2 has been very helpful for me in just thinking about doing the next right thing. We don't have to have it all figured out. We don't have to be thinking 2 weeks, 3 weeks, a month, 2 months ahead right now. Just do the next right thing that you can for yourself and your community to move the ball forward in any way that you can. Next slide. Well, that's it for me. Thanks, folks.
Thank you, Brian. We really appreciate that. And again, for any of you all who may still be having some sound issues, we will be sharing this later. So thank you so much for bearing with us and bearing with the WebEx format. Our next speaker is Laura Ross.
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you now.
Okay, perfect. All right. Hi, everyone. I'm Laura Ross. I am at Five Forks Middle School in Louisville, Georgia. And Alice Ann asked me to talk about ways that we're communicating with our middle school students during this time. So there's a few different ways that we are and using a few different tools and platforms. So I just wanted to share with you all what we are doing. If you could go to the next slide, Stephanie. So to directly communicate with our students, there's a few tools that we are using in our district and in our school. They are approved in our district. So I would say you really just, Brian just said, you want to follow your district guidelines as far as what is approved for you to use with your students. So we are approved to use Google Voice, which is an app that you can put on your phone that allows you to use a Google Voice phone number to give out for parents or students to contact you without using your personal number. And also allows you to call them as well without sharing your number with them. I know some people have done *7. But Google Voice is just that easy number, so they can contact you back. Some counselors that I know will have set up like a brand new Google email, so that, or Gmail, a whole new Google account, and have attached their Google Voice to that. So they don't really have a lot of other things in that Google account, but just so they have that Google Voice attached to a separate account. In our district, we have been approved to do some video meetings with our students. So our students have access to Google Meets. They all have the G Suite with all the apps, well, most of the apps, and they have Google Meets. I have used this so far to do individual sessions, and we've done peer leader interviews because we were in the process of doing that for next year. I have used Google Meets to meet with some of my after school club kiddos, and it has worked well so far. A few glitches here and there, but that's to be expected. So Google Meets, you can actually schedule a meeting on your calendar, and add conferencing and add Google Meets if you have that available to you. Or you can set up the Google Meet and then have a link and share it at that exact moment with who you want to share it with, or invite people through their Gmail into Google Meet. That's worked well for us so far. We've also used Zoom meetings. This just got approved in our district to use with students, but we have all been using it. And probably several of you have been using it to meet with staff, your counseling department. So this is also something that you can set up and schedule meetings with students as well, as long as your district approves for that. So these three ways have been so far our main ways of directly communicating with students or parents through this time. And so we will continue that if everybody starts to get more. This is going to be the norm for us and sort of our direct communication. I will say that it limits confidentiality a bit, especially with the video conferencing with Google Meet and Zoom, because you don't know who is in the room off camera. And so that is a challenge in itself. And so you just need to be mindful of that when you are using those platforms. The last one on here is talking points, and I actually just learned about this in the SC chat on Twitter on Wednesday. So talking points is a way for you to communicate through text messaging with parents that translates the message for you. So may be very helpful for those of you who need to communicate with parents who speak another language. I think they have over 100 languages in their database. I have not used it yet. I have heard a few people using it and they have enjoyed using that and felt that it was beneficial. So I just wanted to put that out there as another kind of direct way to communicate with parents who speak another language other than English. So it may be easier than to communicate with them. So as we move into the next slide, this is really about kind of that one-way communication or even delayed communication that we may have. Of course, email, and that's really the way that we are getting a lot of the word out about how to communicate with us directly. So in sharing our Google Voice number, in making sure they know how to request to set up a Google Meets with us. So emailing still is huge for us in communicating with our students and our families. We, like I said, have all of our students have a G Suite. So they all have a Gmail account that's associated with the school. So that has been beneficial, but they are middle schoolers and, they don't know how to check email every day or even every few days. So that has been a challenge in getting them to check their email. But we have put the word out on other platforms. So I would say the biggest way that we are communicating is using a digital platform. We're trying to be consistent in what we use. Now, fortunately, we have a district provided platform that we use and that we have used for a few years. So if we have inclement weather days, we do digital learning days if we can't go to school. So it's something that for us, we have been lucky because our parents, our teachers, our students all are used to this platform. I would say if I did not have that platform, I would look for one of these others to use. So either a Google Classroom where you could add students in and share with them that way. I know some counselors either have started a website that they've wanted to start for a while, or are kind of beefing up their website. I've used Weebly in the past, and it is very user-friendly. I know others have used Wix or Squarespace. Those are also pretty user-friendly platforms for a website where you can add any content that you want. So adding in posts, adding in videos, pictures, anything that you want to share, links to other things. So that would be another good platform to get the message out and share with your students. My Blueprint app, again, is something that I just learned about, but I wanted to put that out there and share with you. It's an app where you can engage with students. You can post things, they can post pictures, videos, you can respond to them. So it's just another way to kind of communicate with them or share with them, and they can share with you. Um, for all of these spaces, whether it's your district provided platform, Google Classroom, your website, my Blueprint, I think there's ways to share things that maybe we would share on morning announcements or through a lesson or maybe even groups. Now we're going to share with all of our students. Um, my co-counselor and I have posted some information for them. We've, of course, shared resources in the community for food, for internet, um, some of the community counselors who are doing virtual counseling in the community right now, um, but also videos of, we do a coping strategy every day that we would normally share on our morning announcements. We do a Wellness Wednesday. We just decided to do a daily one for them during this time. We've been able to share apps that we know can be helpful to help with academics and keeping their focus for them when they're feeling stressed out, sort of coping strategy apps that are helpful with them. And so anything that we maybe would have done in a classroom, done in a small group, or shared on a morning announcement, we try to get on our platform for them to see. And a lot of these platforms allow for comments and engagement as well. So I think that's important too. So you can get some feedback and discussion with them there. So I think other than using that digital platform, whatever you choose to use that consistently. The other thing that we have also tried to use consistently is social media, um, specifically Instagram. That's where our kids are. And so we have a school Instagram and we have a counseling department Instagram. So we share a lot on our counseling department, but we kind of use the school Instagram as well and ask them to post things for them to check on our Instagram counseling Instagram page or our district provided platform page as well. So we do some announcements in there. We try to share some fun videos. We try to just hello, reminders of what to look for on our pages. So our district provided platform and our Instagram are our consistent spaces to communicate in this way with our students. So we also use some different tools, and you'll see on the next slide, some tools that we use to communicate in different ways. So we can share with students and that our students can share with us as well. So we use video, like I said. We post videos on our Instagram. We post videos on our district platform. You can create videos, of course, on your phone and upload them. You can create videos in Zoom, and we've done a few there. So you can host your own meeting and record yourself. Zoom has a way that you can change the background as well. So I've used that a couple times to change the background so students don't see the same old cream colored wall behind me in my room. So that creates a little bit of fun for them. Some other places that you can create videos are Loom, WeVideo, and Screencastify. I have not personally used those a lot, but I do know counselors who have used them and find them very user-friendly and simple to use. A lot of the platforms allow for discussion or at least comments. I know in Google Classroom, you can post a question where students can answer. I have a Google Classroom for my after-school clubs and asked if they wanted to meet virtually through Google Meets or Zoom, and they have all responded. And so we are starting that and still meeting weekly for our after-school clubs to give them as much normalcy as possible, but also get them linked to those students that are supporting, have been supporting them throughout the school year as well. So anytime that you can have something where you add and ask a question and let people comment or have a discussion post is just another great tool to use on those platforms to communicate with students. I've used Flipgrid. We have actually continued with our school-wide events just virtually. And so we were in the middle of doing in March, every week was a Start with Hello Monday. So this time we did it on Flipgrid. So we made a topic in Flipgrid. We talked about how you can greet and say hello through social media and doing it virtually. So students created videos. You can give them a time limit, give them a topic. They go in, they create their video. They can add little effects to it and stuff. They really had fun with it, where they're saying hello to each other and greeting each other. And then they're posted on the grid, and then all the other students can see them too. So not only are they sharing, but they can see other students sharing and greeting them as well. We actually have after our spring break, we have another school-wide event coming up, um, which was going to be an empathy word wall on one of our cafeteria walls, but we're using Padlet for that now. Um, Padlet is very user-friendly. You can set up what kind of template you want to use and put the topic out there and have students just post to the wall. It can be anonymous, or they can use their name. You can put in restrictions where you have to approve every message, which I have done. I work with middle schoolers and they're on a computer. So just want to make sure that everything's appropriate that gets posted to our wall for our empathy word wall. And they're just sharing words of encouragement and empathy with each other. And again, all the students can log in and see, and our teachers as well, and see what words are being shared through that word wall. So for Flipgrid and Padlet, those are things that I just link into the digital platform that I'm using. You can link them into Google Classroom, into a website, and put those links there for them to go then to those areas in the Padlet and the Flipgrid. Nearpod is something also that you could use, you can use it kind of as a platform as well, or you can just link it into the platform that you have. Nearpod has some already made lessons, videos, virtual field trips that you can use. You can kind of create your own as well. So it's just another fun tool of adding things into your platform for students to see, to discuss, that you can share with them, and then they can comment and share back with you. So with all of these tools, and I know there's many more out there, and I will say this, I did not use Padlet or Flipgrid often. Actually, I never used Padlet before until this started, and I jumped in and figured it out. You really can just spend just a little bit of time and figure it out. It is user friendly, so I highly recommend those, and including videos as well, and linking those to your platforms. It allows students to see your face, and they can be serious, they can be silly. I think they should kind of be all over the place, who you really are in the school, and show them that on the video as well. So the challenges that I have seen so far is on the next slide. Of course, access. All of this is online, and so I know that we have students who don't have access to a device, don't have access to internet. And it's something that our cluster of counselors in our area have really been trying to figure out if there's something that we can do. And so we are looking to see if there's anything we can do that may take actually really coming up with a plan and then talking to administration and district to see if there is anything we can do, because we are not one-to-one where students can take devices home, and we know that there are students who don't have internet available in their home. We also know that we have students who have parents working from home and multiple siblings, and there just aren't enough devices to go around. So as much as we are trying to communicate with our students, I know that we aren't not reaching all of them. And it's something that we are looking at on our district platform: who's not logging in, who is not being reached by teachers, by counselors, by administrators, and using Google Voice to contact them, connect with them, see what's going on, and at least getting to talk to them through Google Voice so we can connect with them in some way. Of course, confidentiality is always a challenge. I know some counselors have used Google Meets or Zoom for groups. In our district, we are being very careful about what groups we are doing that with. If it's a study skills group, we're just talking about skills and practicing a skill, then that's fine. But if it's very something that's very personal and sensitive, we aren't doing those groups, because we don't know who's in the room. in everybody's home that we don't see, and what information that they can hear. It goes the same, we're talking individually with students as well. So we just have to keep that in mind about what we're sharing. And of course, our level of support that we can give is very limited. We are trying to reach as many students as we can in different ways, but we know that we are not able to support all those students in groups that we have been necessarily. We do have a plan in place for crisis response, and we have used it several times already, but it looks very different, where we would first talk with a student and really learn what's going on. We're having to directly contact a parent first, because that is our first mode of contact with our middle schoolers. And so there are definitely challenges, but there are still lots of ways to communicate with our students, and we are going to keep trying every avenue that we can to engage them and communicate and support them, while we still sort of problem solve these challenges and try to overcome these obstacles as best we can during this time.
Thank you, Laura. We really appreciate all the tools that you've shared. There have been a couple of questions that have popped up about using those tools. Like I said, if we are not able to get to all of the questions on the call here, we will do an FAQ, because some of these are really, really great questions about how to use some of the tools, which ones have worked best with your students. So we will do our best to get these things out to you as soon as possible. Next up is Christina Welch.
Hi guys, I am working with elementary, and elementary is a little bit different. Brian and Laura covered a lot of the nuts and bolts about confidentiality and things like that. But I wanted to kind of talk about how we are connecting with our families through something that we are calling Project Connect. So next slide. Project Connect, because most of our elementary kids do not have devices, I'm a K-8 school, and we're one-to-one 5th through 8th grade. To do Google Hangouts and things like that just wasn't feasible, but we really wanted to make sure we were checking in on them. And so we have, and Cameron Welch, that's my son, so that I'm not breaking in confidentiality. So we have a log where any teacher that's a non-classroom or homeroom teacher signs up for a time to call students that they have a connection with. For instance, the art teacher, the music teacher, the PE teacher, media specialist, for them to call and just check in on them. We're trying to do every day, but as of right now, we've got every student, families are being contacted at least 3 times a week. You'll notice above the name Dutcher, there's a cell that you can't see the name highlighted in red. If it's an at-risk student, we highlighted those cells in red that student services team would be following up with those kids. But we still want them to hear from somebody other than us. So we have coordinated this as a way for everybody to communicate with every family throughout the week. And what's been really great about this is that several families are like, I'm hearing from the teacher, but it's really nice when, say, the art teacher calls and to just have like a different type of conversation. The conversations with the teachers are mainly academic, but when we call somebody other than that, that's when the parents like, look, I did not want to tell the math teacher this, but this junk is crazy. I am having a really hard time with this. So they're able to express things to those of us that aren't their kids' teacher that they may not be able to express to the regular classroom teacher per se. Each student is linked to an individual Google Doc for the caller to take notes. Again, I use my son as the example. So you'll notice that his name, Cameron Welch contact log, is highlighted and underlined. So when the person calls him, they'll click that. Next slide. And it'll go to an example call log. And so you'll see there where people wrote what he's doing. So sometimes they'll talk to the student, sometimes they'll talk to the family. Ms. Rubin is our principal. I see the question about this personal cell phone. I'll answer that in just a second. That's a great question. She actually FaceTimed Cameron because she has my cell phone number. A lot of our teachers are doing like a star 67 to block their number, or using Google Voice to be able to call without their number popping up. So that was a really good question. Some of them, our buildings are still open, are calling from the building, the school building. But I know we have one teacher that's been calling from home, and she just uses star 67, and it comes up private or unlisted. So that's how they've kind of worked around that, or doing like a Google call. You can do it that way as well. So that's been a really good way for us to communicate with families. This morning, I talked to one mom, and she was telling me that she didn't want anybody to know, but she didn't have enough food in her house. So that's a contact. And the teacher's like, well, you don't need to call her. I talked to her an hour ago, but I called anyway and got a completely different version of what's going on in their home than their classroom teacher. This is just our way of continuing to keep the connection between home and school and keeping those other teachers engaged that may not be engaged through the daily learning like the rest of them. So this is our Project Connect. It's worked really well so far. It's been really good too. The classroom teachers can see the call logs, and so they can look in there and see, okay, so they really are struggling with math, and maybe make an extra effort to say, hey, would you like to do a math phone call or something like that? So this has worked really well for us. On the fun side of things, next slide, I kind of made it my job to bring some joy to this otherwise chaos and craziness. Part of my role at school is to keep morale up. So one of the things I've been doing is thoughts of the day. I do one every day. I don't know if we can play videos, but this is me dressed up as the fairy godmother. I use a lot of costumes. I post them on YouTube as unlisted, so not just anybody can get to them. And then I send the YouTube link out to the parents' emails. And then they've been showing the kids the thoughts of the day. I too, like Brian, I'm a huge Disney fan, so most of my costumes are Disney, which is fine as long as I don't say I am the Disney fairy godmother. I have to say like your Mabel fairy godmother or something like that. But we've done a lot of these today. Some kids are now starting to send me their thoughts of the day. So I don't know if we can click that, if it'll work or not, if we can try. I may have just messed the whole thing up, guys. I'm sorry. Well, while we're waiting on that to load, I just film it usually on my iPhone and with my iPhone, and then I put it in iMovies, and then you can just upload it directly as unlisted or private to YouTube, and that way not everybody can find it. That keeps it a little more private and confidential. But the one with the fairy godmother talked about making sure you bring joy to your household and doing the little things like the birds singing or going outside and picking a flower and smelling the flowers. And it's just silly little things. And the parents' feedback to me has been that's been like their break in the day, to give them some kind of connection to school that is not, how's your math going? How's your reading going? A little more joyful type things coming from the counseling office. Next slide. Alice Ann asked me to present on TikTok Tuesday. Again, I am K8, so of course, even my 7-year-old son, he's all about TikTok too. So I posted a poll on Thursday, and I've had my 14-year-old help me make sure they're appropriate TikToks, because there's a lot of them out there that are not. And they get to choose between 3 TikToks for the Mabel Mustang to do on Tuesday. And they vote, and the one that has the highest votes is the one that I say I will do this. Actually, I have my daughter get in the costume and do them. But keeps people engaged in a fun and non-threatening way. Kids were already asking, like, when's the next poll coming up after I posted TikTok Tuesday on Tuesday. Has them, it's a way for them to engage with school. Again, that the academics is important, but we all know I have a 14-year-old and a 7-year-old at my house. They're going bananas. And so this kind of gives them a way to communicate with school that's a little less threatening. We filmed it on TikTok and then saved it, and we had to crop off the TikTok tag. Make sure you do that. Otherwise, your TikTok tag, or in this case, it was my 14-year-old, will be published. You definitely do not want that. But you can crop that through video. And then I just sent that video out, again, through a YouTube link. If you want to click next slide, I think I have looks like the videos won't work, but I have a picture of, that's my 14-year-old doing TikToks on our front porch. So it's just, I've just been trying to find fun ways to keep kids engaged. We talked about we don't call it classroom guidance at my school. We call it CAPS class, career, academic, personal, social. I have those listed on a Google Doc, but I'll just be honest with you, as a parent who's trying to do second grade with a 7-year-old, I don't know that I would do them. And he's definitely didn't want to do them. So I've spent a lot of my energy and focus into bringing the fun into every day and keeping the students connected in a non-threatening and fun way. So those are the three things that Alice Ann asked me to present on. Laura and Brian did a great job with the nuts and bolts, and this is just kind of the sprinkle of fun in there.
Thank you so much. I did try to have those videos play. They played on my screen. So if you did not see the videos, hopefully they will show up in the recording. But they are very cool. And when you do receive this, you'll be able to click on them and see them. Your daughter is a good sport to put on the Mabel costume. So thank you all so much. Our next, I will go very quickly through my slides as we are getting close to time. But I wanted to talk to some of you all about College Signing Day celebrations. So every year we celebrate College Signing Day. Some of you all may call them decision days or my future days. We've seen a lot of different names for them, but we do still want to celebrate all of our graduating students and also all of our students to start thinking about college. This is a great time now that students are at home. There may be some ways that they can do some virtual college discovery for College Signing Day. And these are ways that you all can consider hosting a celebration. We're going to call them events and celebrations this year for our students who are either choosing to go to higher education next year or also getting your students thinking about college. This presentation, also this toolkit, can be found online at bettermakeroom.org/college signing day. So you will be able to see this, you'll be able to download it. Like I said, I'm not going to go through every slide, but I do want to give you all a sense of how you can celebrate virtually and from home. This slide is a little bit about who we are and what we've done, so you'll be able to take a look at that. There's also a great message from Mrs. Obama here just for you and your students that you'll be able to click on in the full toolkit. So again, I just want to reiterate that signing day is a time for you to celebrate all of our students who are pursuing their education past high school, whether that's a 2-year degree, whether it's a traditional college or university, if it is an industry recognized certification or credential, and also our students who are going to the military. And so this is also going to be a great way for you all to start talking to your younger students about opportunities in higher education. What are some of the careers that require a 4-year degree? What are some of the careers that maybe require a 2-year degree or some type of training program? And what are some of the things that our students may want to do that is outside of all of that? This is a great opportunity to start thinking about the future, what that looks like, and how we can support our students in their own exploration, as well as their families. So our goal is to have everyone who's going to celebrate College Signing Day or Decision Day to register at bettermakeroom.org/college signing day. You'll see in the lower right-hand corner the registration page. It's just a form that you'll fill out. There are some questions in our more normal times that ask about your event date and how many students you'll think are going to participate. We ask that you just put in an approximate date, an approximate number of students. The way that the form is created, you do have to fill out every piece of it. However, just use the approximate information that you have, and we'll just be glad to see it. One of the reasons why we do like to collect this is that we want to be able to go in and celebrate with you. There's also some tools on the site that you can use with your students, and we will be adding to it as the month goes on, some things that you can do with your students virtually, some things that you'll be able to download. Your students and your families will also be able to access this page. It is an open page and an open website, so they'll be able to download some of those tools. We'll also have a lot of fun stuff on there, like things that people can use on social media, things that people may want to be able to print out and share. So there will be some fun guides on here, some fun tools. But we do just want to make sure that through all of what's going on right now, that we are celebrating our students, especially the ones who are graduating this year and moving on to that next phase in life. We use the hashtag on social media, hashtag College Signing Day, as well as the hashtag Better Make Room. So there are lots and lots of fun ways that you can do this without having a full in-person event. Again, social media is going to be one of your best ways to do it. I'm going to move some of the gray boxes so that you can see some of the pictures of students and schools that have participated in the past. But you'll see that students really do, especially our older students. We're talking about TikTok, we're talking about Twitter and Instagram. They like to share their accomplishments. They like to share their photos on social media. So we do still want to be able to make this a time that we're really celebrating our students. For your younger high school students, this is also a time when they can create their own Common App account to start learning about different colleges, different places they may want to attend, even what just a college application looks like. There are some videos that are on our page at commonapp.org, excuse me, from our member schools, where they can just start doing some research, starting getting familiar with what that process is looking like. I also share that this is a great time to start thinking about financial aid, what you need to have to complete the FAFSA, what forms are necessary, how we can start our parents just thinking about it. I'm not necessarily saying we need to go full force on completing the FAFSA, but this is certainly a time where we can start talking to our students and our parents about what that looks like, what information they'll need, what to expect when the time does come. And again, we have some ideas here for things that you can do with younger students, some for when we are finally back all together, some fun things that we can do with inviting alumni to speak to them. But we can also do some virtual things like sharing photos or drawings that the students may want to do with caps and gowns, having them think about graduation, having them think about what it means to go to college. So many of our students are introduced to college through sports and through some sporting events. This may be a good time to start thinking about what do those things mean? What does March Madness mean? It got canceled, but all of those kids who were going to play in that basketball game were students. And what does that mean? How do we talk to them about making that commitment? Are there pledges that they can take to say, when we are back in school, we're going to talk about college, we're going to think about college because we're excited about higher education. And again, just reiterating, what does higher education mean? Does it only mean a four-year university? Of course not. It also means these other opportunities that we can share with our students for things for them to do once they're out of high school. Again, these toolkits and these resources are all available at bettermakeroom.org/college signing day, as well as our social media guide. And like I said earlier, those social profile graphics and those post graphics that you can use to share your hashtag college signing day photos on signing day. And of course, always, the best ideas come from the field. As you all know, everything that we have learned about College Signing Day, everything that we have implemented in the past with our College Signing Day programs have all been things that we saw in the field first. So I wanted to share some of these posts that we pulled from Twitter and from Instagram about how students in schools were celebrating their College Signing Day. I kept in the picture of the group from Avid because even though they're not social distancing, I loved the creativity that they used to make their pennants, those college pennants. That's the kind of thing that folks can do from home if they have some of those resources. And again, we will be sharing ways to also do some no and low cost ways for our students to participate on social media. And move those boxes so you can see our checklist. But in short, what you should do is you should sign up. Let us know that you're going to participate, no matter how big or how small, or even if you don't have all of your details yet, at bettermakeroom.org. That's also where you'll go to find any additional information to support your college signing days. Pick a day that works best for your community. Generally speaking, we celebrate on May 1st. We will continue to celebrate this year on May 1st, but we're also going to celebrate throughout the entire college admissions season. So you will be seeing us multiple times throughout the month of May into June. So celebrate on a day that does work for you and your students. That could be any day that you want to do, starting today if you want to. But just let us know that you're going to participate. It's great. It helps us know to look for you. And then share your photos and tag us at Better Make Room, at Reach Higher, and use hashtag College Signing Day. And please feel free to email us if you have any questions at info@reachhigher.org. And so with that, again, thank you all so much for joining us today. We have gone over time by just a little bit, and I know that we did start late. Because of some of the technical difficulties that we've had both with sound and with people being able to hear, I'm not going to open up your ability to speak to the group. But if you give us a second, we can go through some of the questions that have popped in that we can answer right now. But also, like I mentioned, we will take the questions that you have and we will compile an FAQ. Many of you received my email address when you registered for this webinar. If there is a question that you have that you think of after this, feel free to use that email address. It is stephanie@reachhigher.org, or it's sowens@commonapp.org. It's the same email box. If you do have some questions, please feel free to email me and I'll add them to the FAQ and we will get this out to you all as soon as possible. One of the big questions that I did see pop up a few times from folks was specifically for Laura, but I believe all of our presenters did speak on this. It was about making sure that you are connecting with your students using some of these tools, but which ones are the ones that you feel are the best ones to use with your students? Laura, I'll let you take that. Real quick, someone did just mention that the SREB does list this webinar for 1.5 hours. Yes, technically it is, because I knew that we would go over time. But in our descriptor, did just say an hour, so I do want to respect everyone's time. And for those of you all who do need to sign off, again, this is still recorded, and we will get back to you. But Laura, if you want to address that, I did see that pop up a few times.
So far, the best ways for me to communicate with my students directly has been with Google Meets. I have used only Google Meet so far because Zoom just got approved yesterday or the day before, but my plan is to use Zoom as well. I think I actually do like Zoom a little bit better. So that has been the best way for me to speak with students or groups of students or my clubs. Google Voice has been great for me to reach out to parents. Excuse me. And my co-counselors also use Google Voice a lot. When we have had, we've had a few situations where somewhere in their online classrooms, platforms, whether it's the video or something they were writing, I've had some students share things about self-harm or suicide. So we've been using Google Voice to contact the parents, but then also speaking with the students through Google Voice, and then setting up a Google Meets with the students. So those have been the best ways of direct communication. Other than that's the best way of communication. Using our digital platform to get information out to our students has also been the easiest way. And like I said, I'm very fortunate that I'm in a district that provides us a platform that we have used for years. And so the students are used to using it. They're used to going on to the different pages. They have a page for every teacher. So that has been helpful. So they know to look there. They don't always know to look at the counseling one. So we promote all over Instagram for them. But actually speaking with our students, it has been Google Meets or Zoom.
Thank you. Another one that has popped up, it was specifically for Laura, but I think this is one that all of you can speak to. The question is, on social media, do you follow students back on Instagram? And I'll throw in there any of the other social media platforms. Have you encountered any safety concerns when you see their posts? I worry about seeing student posts and not having access to them, but feeling that they need a safety intervention based on their posts. Is this something that any of you all have had to deal with? And if so, how were you able to handle it, especially now when we don't have the direct access to students the same way we might have?
I can
So
speak to that.
I
Oh,
choose. Oh, sorry.
no, go for it, Laura.
I will just say with our Instagram post, we do not follow students back at all. We choose not to follow our students on social media. Neither does our school. With their social media, does not follow students back.
Yeah, I would just add to that. In our district specifically, we have a very strong policy that staff cannot follow students. And if you have an official social media presence based on your role within our district, that has to get approved by the district. And even still, students aren't necessarily allowed to follow you directly. So there's a lot of guidelines and parameters around how to engage with students via social media. Specifically, to your question of well, if you see something and you think that an intervention is necessary, I think that's if you have the policy that allows for that level of communication via social media with students, I think it's very appropriate to have a conversation with your school administration around what is the appropriate triage strategy, not just for the period of closure, but in general. And I would have that conversation sooner than later, now that you're sort of forced into a situation where if you were going to see something, you'd only truly be able to see it via social media. So I think that's an appropriate conversation with your school team and your school administration.
Christina, is there something you want to weigh in on this too? I think especially now in sort of the TikTok era, sort of what this means about, seeing students do things that may seem funny, but might also be dangerous.
Yeah, my biggest thing so far that's been on any social media is that my daughter's on social media. So sometimes she'll see things and bring it to me because I am not on TikTok. I do not do any of that. And we haven't had that come up since school's out. But in that case, I typically try to talk to the kids. So I'm at a middle school too, and we use Google Hangouts. We did have an issue with our fifth graders who did not know how to use Google Meets and were cyberbullying through Google Meets. And we called parents and sent home some one-sheeters about supervision, called parents and just said, hey, just please make sure they're only using this for school. But in terms of K-5 and the TikTok era, our middle school teachers are posting TikToks and having a good time with it. But our school system, we do not follow kids on TikTok or Facebook or anything else. We have kind of the same rule. But anytime we have something that comes up that's concerning, we of course follow the standard protocol to, if say somebody posts something about suicidal ideation, to call mobile crisis, notify the parents like we would if we were at school.
Well, thank you all so much for joining. This has been, I appreciate everyone bearing with us with the technical difficulties. I was looking back through and I saw that some of you did mention that folks tried to sign in even though they had registered. My guess is that the system is just overwhelmed by everyone being online at the same time throughout the world at the moment. That is what happened with Alice Ann and why she could not join us today. I don't know how the system sort of picked and chose who was going to be able to log in. But again, we will make this available to all of you, both the recording as well as the slides. We'll get those to you as soon as possible. If I'm honest, and I'm on a call with a bunch of school counselors, you all keep me honest. It probably won't happen this evening, but I will do my best to get these to you as soon as possible at the start of next week. So again, I want to thank all of you so much for joining. Thank you, Christina, Laura, and Brian, for all that you do. You keep my spirits lifted during these times, and I really do appreciate this work. So thank you all very much. Have a wonderful evening, rest of the day, and just stay safe out there.
Thank you.
Thank you. Take care.
Thanks, guys. So this too shall pass.